Okay, Boker Tov. Good morning and welcome to our Parsha class. The Parsha of Vayeitzei. Parsha of Vayeitzei, page 181. We're talking about Jacob, Yaakov leaving Israel. Leaving Israel. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is we'll see the interesting relationship that the two sisters have, Rachel and Leah. They end up being sisters and sisters-in-law because their sister's husband is also their husband's. So either way, we talk about their relationship, and we also talk about them having children. This week's parsha, Yaakov has almost all of his children, 11 out of the 12 tribes, are all born this week's parsha. So we'll learn about this interesting relationship that they had, also what it means to have a healthy envy or jealousy. Is there ever a healthy jealousy? Okay, we'll talk about that momentarily. But let's kind of go through the general overview of the parsha. So the opening of the parsha is page 181, 180, chapter 28, verse 10 in Bereshis. It opens up with the words Vayeitzei Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva vayelech Haran. Yaakov left the city of Beersheba. We know where that is. It's south of Israel today. And he went to a place called Haran. What's the backstory over here? Last week we were away in New York. We didn't give the class, but basically in last week's parsha, Yaakov is born, and he has a brother Esav, and Yaakov steals the blessings from Esav, as we know the story. Esav is mad, Esav is angry, Esav wants to kill him. So Yaakov has to run away. So they tell him, listen, we don't want you to marry one of the girls of the local Hittites. We want you to go to family, go to Haran. So he leaves. And this week's Parsha, he leaves, and on the way he stops, it gets dark. He puts the stones around his head, as we know the story. He has a dream of the ladder. God speaks to him, God gives him blessings. He eventually ends up by his uncle Laban, who is a trickster. He is sly, very difficult to work with. And originally, he sees the daughter of Laban, Rachel. He sees Rachel. We know that Laban had two daughters. He had Leah, and he had Rachel. Leah was older, and Rachel was younger. Now, Laban, we know him already. He's been mentioned already before. He was Rivka's brother. In other words, if you're following the family tree over here, Rachel and Leah were first cousins with Yaakov and Esau. Brothers and sister, Laban and Rivka, two brothers and siblings. They have two children. One has two daughters and one has two sons. And you know what people were saying? When they would come to shul, they would say, hey, Laban, we got a great shidduch for your daughters. You know what a shidduch is? Shidduch is a good match. We have a great match for your daughters. Look, you got two daughters. Your sister, Rebecca, has two sons. Perfect. Your older daughter will marry the older son, Esav, and your younger daughter, Rachel, will marry the younger son, Yaakov. Great. Look at that. Perfect. And people were serious about it. And it wasn't just a one-time offhand comment, but this was coming up over and over again to a point where Leah was trying to get nervous. Rachel was probably happy. Heard about Yaakov. What a fine young man. Good characteristics, a refined character, very polite, very sensitive, a good-hearted person. Wow, I'm so happy if this ever comes to fruition. But Leah was getting nervous. Leah was thinking, Esav, I heard about this guy. I heard about cousin Esav. I never met him, but I heard about him. He's the rough and tumble, right? He's out there. He's a trickster. He's tough. He's rough. He's sly. He's difficult. He's even wicked. I mean, she heard things about him, and she says, "I don't know about this idea. This doesn't sound so great." And in fact, it got so serious where she would cry herself to sleep. She would literally cry. And that's exactly what it says in the Parsha, that her face, her eyes were red. We're going to jump ahead to verse 17 on page 189. I guess we'll go to verse 16 and 17, where 16 says, Lavan had two daughters. The older one was called Leah, and the younger one was called Rachel. Ve'enei Leah rakois. Leah's eyes were tender. Rachel had beautiful facial features and beautiful complexion. Why was her eyes tender? So Rashi says, because she was crying that she may be marrying Esau. Right? So the story goes that Yaakov comes to Haran. He meets Rachel, and right away, love at first sight, right? Right away, oh, this is who I'm meant to marry. It's a family member, right? She was coming there for family. It's a first cousin. Everything clicks. This is perfect. He also had that divine vision. He knew that this is going to be the person that he will marry. And so, got to speak to the dad. Got to speak to Laban. And says, Lavan, Uncle Lavan, I want to marry your daughter Rachel. He says, sure, Yaakov, my nephew Yaakov, I heard such good things about you. Of course, you can marry my daughter Rachel, but on one condition. Can't give it to you for free. You got to work for it. And what do you got to do? I want you to work 7 years. 7 years, you got to work for me to marry Rachel. And he said, no problem. So he worked for 7 years. And it felt like a few days because of his love to Rachel. And after 7 years, the big wedding is about to happen. With big fanfare, right? The whole town is invited. And they get married. And the next morning, Yaakov wakes up and he is startled. What's going on over here? It's Leah. How exactly did this happen? Lavan obviously tricked him. Instead of marrying Rachel, he married Leah. How exactly could this happen? So there's a midrash that says that just like Yaakov and Esau were twins, Rachel and Leah were also twins. And not only were they twins, they were identical twins. So identical twins. And obviously this is before electricity. So at night, there's no light, right? It's dark. So it wasn't that much of a big deal. It wasn't that hard to trick Yaakov into marrying Leah. Either way, this is what happens. Now,
if they were identical twins, then they were the same age. Yeah, but maybe a couple. One was born first.
Oh, the same age, but one's still a few minutes older, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they were the same age. Oh, Esau and Yaakov were also twins, right? They weren't identical twins, but right. So yeah, so we do keep the person covered. That's when you go to the chuppah and stuff. The question is, how was he able to go through a whole night without noticing that this is not the woman that he wanted to marry? So if it was someone that was identical, I mean, there could have been other explanations, right? Obviously, maybe a spiritual thing or meant to be or whatever happened. But to say that they were identical twins, I mean, that you can understand how this was something that was possible. Either way, the point is, he comes to his father-in-law and uncle. He said, "What's going on over here? You tricked me. We made up Rachel. I worked 7 years for Rachel." And Lavan says, "Yeah, but it's not right. Leah is older. This is the way we work. We first marry the older child, the younger child. I'm sorry. It happened. Now what? Well, now what? Well, I want to marry Rachel. So, okay, you want to marry Rachel? Another 7 years. He says, okay, I'll do it. So he actually marries her immediately, like 7 days later, he marries Rachel on the condition that he will work for 7 years. And that's what happens. He marries Rachel this is one of the sources for the idea of the Sheva brachos, right? That um, for 7 days after our wedding, till today, as it is the custom, for 7 days after our wedding, it's still part of the wedding celebration, right? We like to celebrate, not just like a day or two, right? We like to like Hanukkah, 8 days, right? So what's the song go, right? You got presents for one night, we got presents for 8 nights. But the truth is that wedding itself is not just, hey, it's a nice wedding weekend, but it's actually a week of a celebration. So someone gets married on Sunday, so for the next week we have Sheva Brachos. So whenever we get together with the bride and the groom, we kind of have a celebration for 7 days. And the source of it, or one of the sources of it, is actually from this story that they waited a week, 7 days before he married Rachel, because for 7 days they were still rejoicing with the original marriage of Leah. No, he did not leave Leah. That's a whole different discussion. Why didn't he leave Leah? Why was he even allowed? Why was he allowed to marry two sisters? That's a discussion for itself. But either way, he gets married to Rachel. Now he has two wives, and now the story begins of becoming a father. And Leah begins to having children first. In fact, she has 4 children. She has Reuven, she has Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. And each of these names, the Torah talks about the explanation behind the reason for the name, what prompt them to give this specific name for this, expressing a certain idea through having this child. And then after having 4 children, Rachel starts to become jealous. And this is what we're going to read inside. Chapter 30, verse 1, page 193 in the Gutnei Chumash. Vatera Rachel. Rachel saw Ki lo yolda liYaakov, that she has not born Yaakov any children. Vatekane Rachel ba'achos. So here are 3 words that the Torah adds in. That Rachel was jealous of her sister. Vatoimer el Yaakov, and she tells Yaakov, Havali banim, give me children. V'im ayin mesa anoich. If not, I am as good as dead. So she comes very sternly to her husband, Yaakov, give me children. I need children. What does Yaakov say? How does he respond? Vayichar af Yaakov b'Rachel. Yaakov became angry with Rachel. Vayomer, he says, Hasachas Elokim anochi. Am I in place of God? Hashem mona mimech privaten, who has withheld the fruit of the womb from you? What are you asking me? Is my fault? Am I God? Have I caused this? You figure this out. Okay, this is a typical conversation. A husband and a wife, losing it a little bit at each other. What is going on over here? So Rashi and others, and you see in the good thing they already throw it in the parentheses in the translation, they kind of they shed some light on this conversation. What was Rachel complaining about to Yaakov? Giving me children. What should Yaakov do? Right? Sometimes it's not in the hands of the husband. And what was his response? So it's explained that her complaint to Yaakov wasn't that, give me children. Yaakov is doing his part. What's he supposed to do? But he's saying, I want you to pray. And what she referenced was actually Yaakov's parent, Yaakov's father, right? What happened when Isaac and Rebekah, when Yitzchak and Rivka, when they were barren, when they did not have children? We know that they were married and for many, many years without children. And they were praying. They would pray every day. And because of their prayer, the Torah says that God heard their prayer and answered their prayer, and they gave birth to children. So Rachel is saying, Yaakov, I don't notice you praying for that I should have children. So be like your father, be like your dad. Pray that we have children. You know what Yaakov's response was? Yaakov's response was, I should have children. I have children. I got 4 children. You want children? You got to pray. What does that mean? What Yaakov wasn't sensitive to Rachel's request. I mean, she wants children, like a mother wants children. What Yaakov was saying was, according to some of the commentaries, Yaakov was saying that my father, he did not have children from any of his wives. I know, Yaakov says, that I am destined to have children through specific women, through specific wives. And I have children from Leah. And if you want that to have children with me, you have to be the one to pray. He was encouraging her that I want you to pray. So if you pray, you will have children. And that was his response. And eventually, God did hear her prayer. But before that, meanwhile, Rachel took her her maid Bilhah, and Yaakov married Bilhah as well and had children through Bilhah. And then later Leah did the same thing, took her maid Zilpah, and Yaakov married Zilpah and had two children from her as well. And eventually Leah had an additional two children, or two boys and another girl. And eventually Rachel also had, in this Parsha, one child, Joseph, and the next Parsha, she had Benjamin. So in total, Yaakov had 4 wives, 6 boys and 1 girl from Leah, 2 boys from Bilhah, Zilpah, and Rachel. So in total, we have 12 boys and 1 girl. Parenthetically, we know that Yaakov was the one, and you'll appreciate this, Yaakov was the one who instituted the prayer of Mincha, right? The afternoon prayer. Sorry, of Meir, the evening prayer. Yitzchak was Mincha. He was the evening prayer. I think it was, maybe it was the opposite. And so it's explained why was Yaakov the one who did the evening prayer. Now, what time is evening prayer? Shul? Sundown. It's a busy time at home, right? Yaakov would rather be in shul than being home bathing 12 kids. Let's just keep this between us, okay?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to record that.
Okay. So where were we? Okay. So he has 12 children. So now, but I want to go back to this verse over here, okay? The Torah describes Rachel's sadness, or her want, her desire to have children. Okay. Now we know it's a natural thing for a mother to want children, to want to be a mother, to want to have children, to want to have 1, they want to have 2, however many they want, right? It's a normal thing for a woman who is married, who is trying to have children, to be upset or sad or in pain that they're not able to have children, especially after a year or 2. It doesn't say how long it was, but obviously her sister already had 4 children, so it's already been a few years, and she's not being blessed with children. It's a very normal thing for a mother to be, or a potential mother for a wife to be sad about this, be in pain. So the question that some of the commentaries have over here is that the Torah says Rachel saw that she hasn't given any birth to any children to Yaakov. Vatikane Rachel ba'achoisa, that Rachel was jealous of her sister Leah. And seemingly, and I see that they already threw in some of the commentary in the English translation here, but if you read it literally, what it means is that she was jealous. What was she jealous of? Hey, Leah has 4 children. It's going so well and so easy for her. She gets married. She wasn't even the intended wife. And now she has 4 children just like that. Simple, easy, without any struggle, without any interventions. And I'm going through such a difficult time trying to have children. And, right, that's seemingly what the Torah is telling us. That is, there was a jealousy over here. Leah has children and I don't have children. Now, we obviously know that jealousy is not a good thing. In fact, we're sitting here in a synagogue. We have the 10 Commandments written right behind us on the ark. And one of the 10 Commandments is, do not covet. Do not be jealous. I want to be like that person. I want to be like this other person. This person has what I want. This person, don't look at others. Don't look at others. What does the Torah gain by adding that she was jealous of her sister? And if she wasn't jealous of her sister, if her sister did not have any children, would she not want children? Right? A woman gets married, wants to raise a family, and is not able. She wants children because others have children, but she wants children because she wants children. Why do we have to throw in this idea that she was jealous of someone else? And in fact, knowing Rachel and knowing her history, she was the exact opposite of that. On the contrary, she was so caring and loving for others and wanted the good for others. She wasn't always thinking about, comparing. She wasn't always comparing the good of others to herself. She was always thinking about the others. In fact, going back to the story of the marriage, Rachel knew her father. She knew her father's a trickster, and she was nervous about it. And they had the conversation. Yaakov and Rachel, engaged couple, as they were getting ready for their marriage, they sat down, and Rachel says, Yaakov, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you about my dad. You think you know my dad, you don't really know my dad. It's possible for him to do anything. And in fact, I'm not even sure I'm going to marry you because I know my dad. He's going to trick you last minute. My sister Leah might be the one. She knew this. And she had this conversation with Yaakov. And in fact, they tried to prevent it. And what did they do? They said, you know what? We're going to give each other certain signs, certain code, like knock 3 times type of thing, certain code. And this is the code that we're going to know that it's each other. I'm going to know it's you. You're going to know it's me. And like this, we'll be sure that we're going to marry each other. They tried to prevent it. And they had this code. Comes the night of the chuppah, comes the night of the wedding, and Rachel sees what's going on. Rachel sees that Leah is being prepared, and Lavan's going about with his plan, and Leah's going to marry Rachel. What's the first feeling that comes to her mind? She's not thinking about what's going to be with my marriage. You know, she's thinking, how embarrassed is my sister going to be? What's going to happen to Leah when Yaakov asks for the code, for the signs? She's not going to know it. She's going to be so embarrassed. I can't do this to my sister Leah. So she gives Leah these secret signs, these secret codes. And that's how Leah knew it. And that's how they got married in order not to embarrass her sister Leah. And in fact, the Midrash tells us that, do you know why Rachel was not buried near Yaakov in Hebron in the Ma'aras HaMachpelah we spoke about a few weeks ago? Leah was buried there. Where was Rachel buried? Rachel died during childbirth. She was buried along the road. Michael and Lance and Diane, they were there with us. We went to pray. It's actually now it's like a suburb of Jerusalem, but at the time it was on the side of the road. It was on the side of the road. And it says, why was she buried there? Because one day, after the destruction of the first temple, which was destroyed because the Jewish people were serving idols, and the Jewish people are going to pass on the way to exile, as they're being exiled from Jerusalem. They're going to walk down this road, this path, and they're going to pass by the tombstone of the burial spot of Rachel. And Rachel's going to take that opportunity to pray to God. And what she's going to say is, God, look at me, who I withheld. I withheld what I knew was meant for me. And even though something was being done against me, I withheld, and I gave these signs to my sister. So too, you should also withhold. The Jewish people serve idols. I know you're upset about it, but withhold your anger and don't destroy the Jewish people. And it says that God will listen to the prayer of Rachel and tells Rachel, don't worry, your children will be back in Jerusalem. Your children will come back because God listens to the prayer of Rachel. So in other words, Rachel was the person who personified the idea of caring for others, not just thinking about yourself like a selfish type of thing. I want more. Look what this person has. I'm jealous. On the contrary, she was always thinking for her sister Leah. So why does the Torah have to throw in these three words? Vatekane Rachel ba'achoisa, that Rachel was jealous of her sister. Seemingly, first of all, it's uncharacteristic for her. And secondly, what does it add? What does it add? She wants children. It's a normal feeling for a mother. So she wants children. Why? What does it add? The fact that she was jealous that Leah had children. She didn't have children. That's the big question. Is it a big question? Can you sleep at night with this question? Maybe you could. Maybe you can't. Well, I'm not going to test you. I'll give you the answer. What's the answer? The answer is as you see already in the English in the Good Chumash, and this is from Rashi. And Rashi says, powerful thing. He says that what was this jealousy? The jealousy wasn't, hey, my sister Leah has children, I want children. The jealousy was that she was jealous of her maasim tovim, of her good deeds. And she said, you know why Leah has children? Because she is a righteous person. She has so many good deeds. She does such good deeds. She acts properly. And in the merit of that, she has children. And therefore, what she saw was, Rachel says, I need to grow in my work, right? I need to become a better person. She wasn't jealous that you have something good, I also want it. But she saw it in a way where I could grow from this and say, wow, what a righteous person this person is. Maybe I could also grow in my life. So, right, there are two types of jealousies. If it's jealousy that look how good this person has it, I also want it. That's wrong. Each person is different. Each person is unique. God takes care of each person. Each person has something that other people don't have. So don't be jealous. Be happy with your lot. It says, "Hasameach bechelkei." Who is wealthy? Who is happy with their lot? If you think about your life, you say, you know what? Others may have certain things that I don't have, but I have so many other things that others don't have. And I should be happy with what I have. Let's not compare. And that's where jealousy comes in. Don't be jealous. But then there's a jealousy where you realize, you know what? Really, I could grow. I see something in that person. What a good deed. What a nice thing that this person does. I could also do it. I feel like I could grow from this. So it's not that I want what they want. It's more like that's like a mirror of maybe I see that in myself that I'm missing this and I know myself. I know that I could grow in this area. That's a healthy jealousy. I want to read a little passage from a little book called the Hayom Yom. It's daily sayings, daily like little inspirational ideas that the Rebbe put together in 1944, 1943, 1944. And this is actually just a few days ago, about 2 weeks ago. This is a little saying from the previous Rebbe. It reads as follows. Originally it was in Yiddish. This is a translation to English. In material matters, one should always look at he whose situation is lower than one's own and thank the good God for his kindness to him. In other words, if someone has it well, if someone's doing well off in material matters, so instead of saying, well, this person has even more money, this person has even a bigger house, this person has even a nicer car, this person takes even more vacation, that's not helpful. You see, look at others, and you know what? Thank God I have what I need. Not everyone has what they need, or not everyone has as much as I have. So look at people who have less and say, thank you, God, for what I have. In spiritual matters, he continues, one should always look at he who is higher than oneself and plead with God to grant him the intelligence to learn from the other and the ability and strength to rise higher. Someone says, you know what? Look at that person. In spiritual matters, they're so much greater than me. Not, I wish I was them. No, I can learn from them how I could grow in my service, in my spiritual journey. I can live more of a divine life, right? In those areas, jealousy is healthy because all it does is it makes me grow in my service to God. And that was the jealousy that Rachel had. In Leah, it was like, hey, it wasn't that you have children, I want children. you're living such a good life. You have so many good deeds. I could also add them in good deeds as well. And for that, she was jealous. And that she actually did incorporate that in her life. And God did answer her prayers. And she was able to give birth to two beautiful children. So I want to say a story. I might have told the story because I heard the story about a year ago, and it happens to be with my hometown, Toronto. And my father's actually from Montreal, so it's a Canadian story. Okay, so it's a Montreal Toronto story. So in Toronto, there is a very large, successful community, I'd say, just about 20 minutes north where I grew up in Thornhill. Anyone here know Toronto neighborhoods? Yeah, I'm talking gibberish to everyone over here. Okay, so basically, there's a neighborhood Thornhill. That's where a very large Jewish community is. It's called the North Community. In Toronto, there's different neighborhoods. There's the South Community and there's the North. This is the North. This is where I grew up. My family grew up. North of where I grew up, Thornhill, is a place. I think it's called Thornhill Woods. I'm not sure what it's called, but there's a big area, and the Chabad over there is called Chabad of Flamingo. Flamingo is actually not a neighborhood. Flamingo is the name of a street, but he called himself Chabad of Flamingo. I guess it's a catchy title. Chabad of Flamingo. It's on Flamingo Road. That's what it is. It's a pretty large community led by Rabbi Kaplan, Mendy Kaplan. In fact, maybe you're familiar with his name because he has a lot of YouTube videos as well. So he's one of the YouTube rabbis. He's the rabbi who very often you'll find like he takes videos. He does a lot of pictures and videos of his classes. He'll have. See, I'm a simple rabbi. I have just one little book, and that's enough for me. But he has maybe on average about 15 to 20 books opened on his table. He doesn't like using like text sheets where like you just like consolidate all your text onto one sheet. He actually likes to read it from the actual book. So he'll have every commentary that he mentions in this class, he'll have that book on the table. So he'll have like 15, 20 books in the whole class. He's like, okay, so I heard a interesting commentary from this book over here, and then this commentary says he's going from book to book. Either way, that's the style of his class.
There's a sheet in the back.
Right. Yeah, no, he knows sheets in the back. He's source. He likes the book itself, and he's going from book to book. So he has like 50, either way. This is his community, Rabbi Kaplan. And a number of years ago, someone joined his community. His name is Jonathan Weiss. Jonathan Weiss, he's married. He has a daughter. They were members of the Jewish conservative temple in the neighborhood, and he started attending some of the Chabad functions, the minyan. Started getting more and more involved, and he became basically a regular member at Chabad of Flamingo. Obviously, he was growing in his Judaism and getting more involved in Judaism. He was a wonderful person to have around. And one day, it was actually this time of year, actually, it was the month of Kislev, and they had a Farbrengen. And they decided that year that they're going to do their community gatherings, their Farbrengens, in different members' homes. So this particular Farbrengen was at the home of Jonathan Weiss. And they had about 50 people there. They're bringing. It's a great little get together. And then as the night goes on, people start to leave. It's about like 12 a.m. There's about 5-6 people left sitting around the table. And people said some l'chaim, people started to open up a little bit. And Jonathan starts to talk and tell everyone his life story. He says, let me tell you like what brought me here. Like why suddenly about a year or two ago did I start growing in my Judaism, that I joined Chabad, I was a member of the conservative. He says basically he grew up in Montreal, Canada. And at a young age, is him and I think 2 of his brothers or sisters, there were 3 siblings. And his father basically suddenly left the family when they were young children. So they were raised by a single mom. And he said it was very difficult. It wasn't easy. It was hard. He had obviously a lot of mixed feelings towards his father, why he suddenly left. And his mother was struggling. They were kind of lively children. And it wasn't so easy. And he was having a little bit of a difficult time. And he said that he had a neighbor who was a very sweet kid. So he doesn't remember his last name. He remembers his name and he pronounced it like with a real like Russian Yiddish way. He says his name was Yena. Yena basically is Yona, which is, you say Jonah, right? But that's what he called himself, Yena. And he said, Yena was a child my age, and he befriended me. And he was a religious kid, and he would spend time with me, we would play together, and he would also take me to synagogue, he would take me to shul. And he would wake me up in the morning, he would knock at my door, get me up Shabbos morning, and we would walk together, and I would sit next to him and his father, his family, and in fact, we became pretty good friends. And his father, Yena's father, actually bought me a little sitter, and that was a sitter I used to use. And I really kind of became very close friends with that family. I would sit with them, like he became like my father figure, his Yena's father, and I would sit with them in shul, and he would take care of me. He would walk me to shul, walk me out to shul, and we'll play together. Like, and it really did a lot. And then there's another friend who would also encourage me to study some Torah together and to memorize some of the verses. And these were like these two friends that my childhood friends. And then, and he said, and it really made a very strong impact on my life, and it really helped me a lot. But then as we became older and we got to high school, we moved away, and I lost touch with all these people. And life moved on, and I got married. And at one point, I was kind of totally non-involved in Judaism. I was getting married to someone non-Jewish, and like Judaism wasn't at the forefront of my mind at all. And then I realized suddenly this whole image of going to shul with Yaina and his father came to me, and I said, no, I can't do this. I have to be much more involved in my Judaism. So he ended up marrying a Jewish woman and had children together. They were involved in the conservative, but he always felt that he wanted more. He wanted more. So that's why he joined the Chabad community in Flamingo. And he says this, here I am, a few years later, I'm still growing, He says a story. This is like 12 a.m. on a winter night in Toronto. 5 people around the table. And Rabbi Mendy Kaplan hears the story. And he's thinking, Yaina, looks at this guy's age, mid-50s or so, closer to 60. Yaina from Montreal. He says, I know a Yaina from Montreal who's just around that age. He actually lives here in Toronto. His name is Yaina Shore. He's actually the dean of the Cheder, of the elementary school, Chabad Elementary School. Growing up, he was a neighbor of ours. We know who he is. Good friend of my father's. Let me call him. Maybe it's him. So he calls Yaina on the phone at 12 a.m. He says, Yaina, do you know a guy, Jonathan Weiss? And he says, what? Jonathan Weiss? Of course I know Jonathan Weiss. He's a childhood friend. What's going on? It's like, well, I'm sitting with him. It's like, where are you? I'm coming right over. And he comes over, and this is him. And I actually have a video of their embrace. Let me show you quickly. Doesn't want to come around the table. Let me first open. Give me 1 second. Second.
There are no words. There are no words.
You know how many times I was thinking, I know you moved to Ottawa. Where am I ever going to find you again? I can't tell you how many times I thought of you.
I can't tell you how many times I thought of you, and I remember just little pieces and what there are no words, man. I'm so happy you came here, and we were just.
I recognize you in 1 second.
A short clip. But basically, I mean, what did I say, 45 years they embraced. It's an amazing story. And I think that's a healthy jealousy. Knowing that as a child you had someone to look up to and someone that you admired. And for your whole life, you were jealous. But what were you jealous? It wasn't like, oh, I wish I could be like another person. Why is my life so different? It wasn't the jealousy. Jealousy was, I wish I could grow. I wish I could be a better person. And I could be a better person. And this is a way of being inspired to be better, to grow, to be closer to God. That's something healthy. That's something healthy. And this is something that we can learn from Rachel. And that's why perhaps the Torah adds these three words. And it wasn't just enough to say, Rachel wanted children. That's normal. But Rachel wanted children, and she was jealous that she knew that she could become better. And she did become better. And that's what brought the blessings about. So that's my little thought for this week's Parsha. Thank you for joining us. And and we'll see you next week. I know next week is Thanksgiving weekend. I'm here. I'm happy to give the class. So if you're available, please join us for next week's class. Have a Shavua Tov.
Thank you.